Tonight, New Orleans reels from a suspected terror attack. A man rams a truck into a crowd.
He was hell-bent on creating the carnage and the damage that he did.
The death toll from a New Year's nightmare.
You just heard this squeal and then this huge, loud impact.
Unlocking answers in the South Korean plane crash. Opening the black box to find out what happened to Flight 2216. Plus, new year, new laws.
The majority of Canadians are going to see higher payroll taxes.
From the carbon tax to the pension plan, the changes to expect. And setting up for success in the new year.
Making money is a big one.
I plan on visiting family more.
The resolve to keep the resolutions for 2025.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Mirella Fernandez.
Good evening. The FBI is hunting for accomplices after an American man rammed a truck into a crowd in New Orleans on New Year's Eve. 15 people are dead and about 24 others are injured. The driver veering past police barriers on a sidewalk in the French Quarter, still flooded with partiers just after 3 in the morning. In seconds, there are bodies everywhere. Then the sound of gunfire as the suspect leaves the truck and shoots at police. Explosives were found in the truck and in the area where the celebration was happening. CTV's Jeremy Sharon has the latest.
Sirens ring out in the streets of New Orleans just hours into the new year. This is the aftermath on Bourbon Street of a violent truck attack. A tragic and deadly start to the new year.
Debris, just metal, the sound of crunching metal and bodies.
More than a dozen people were killed and dozens more injured after a man drove around a police blockade around 3:15 a.m. and rammed his pickup truck into a crowded street before being shot by police.
He was hell-bent on creating the carnage and the damage that he did.
Now being investigated as terrorism by the FBI, authorities say guns and potential improvised explosive devices were found in the suspect's truck, and other potential IEDs were found in New Orleans' French Quarter.
An ISIS flag was located on the trailer hitch of the vehicle, and the FBI is working to determine the subject's potential associations and affiliations with terrorist organizations.
The suspect has been identified as 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, a U.S. citizen from Texas and an Army veteran. Police believe the attacker was not acting alone.
We have a plan. We know what to do. We are going to get these people.
We are aggressively running down every lead, including those of his known associates.
Louisiana's governor today declared a state of emergency
to bring all of the resources necessary to get this city safe.
U.S. President Joe Biden called the attack despicable.
Mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill.
President-elect Donald Trump posted a message to social media calling the attack an act of pure evil, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the news out of New Orleans this morning horrifying.
Now, tens of thousands of people were expected in New Orleans today for the Sugar Bowl, a college football game that has now been postponed to tomorrow. Mirella?
CTV's Jeremy Sharon. And New Orleans will host the Super Bowl in 6 weeks. In fact, barriers in the French Quarter were removed to be replaced in time for the big game. The security plan is now being reviewed. Authorities are also investigating if there's a connection between New Orleans and an explosion outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. One person inside the Tesla was killed when the 2024 Cybertruck started to smoke, then exploded. Several others nearby suffered minor injuries. Investigators have pulled the data off the cockpit voice recorder from the jet that crashed in South Korea. They hope it will shed light on what forced the plane to crash land, killing 179 people. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth reports.
It's a disaster still sending shockwaves around the globe. On Sunday at Muwon International Airport in South Korea, the Jeju Air Boeing 737-800, arriving from Bangkok, skidded down the runway at high speed before crashing into a wall and bursting into flames. Moments before the crash, the pilot issued a mayday call and reported a bird strike. The video also shows the landing gear was not deployed. Families of the 175 passengers and 4 crew members who died have visited the crash site. There were 2 survivors. Korean authorities say they have identified all 179 bodies. 2 from Thailand, the rest were South Korean.
He's doing a great job here. Everything's fine.
After studying video of the flight, CTV News aviation specialist Phil Dirty is at a loss to explain what caused the crash.
There's so many questions that are yet to be answered.
South Korean officials say they can't extract the contents of the damaged black box, so they're sending it to the U.S. for further analysis. Dirty says this is the first step in what will be a thorough and lengthy investigation.
But we have to wait till we get the cockpit voice recorders and flight data recorder.
Investigators from South Korea and the U.S., along with Boeing representatives, are involved in the joint investigation. In an email, the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board told CTV News any findings from the damaged flight recorder will be released by South Korean aviation officials. Dirty has questions about the 4-meter-high walled embankment at the end of the runway,
which was the mounting spot for the instrument landing system. It goes against the international aviation standards to have a wall at the end of the runway.
Dirty says if the wall had not been there, it's possible this tragedy could have been avoided. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
As we enter into a new year, there are a few financial shifts Canadians should be aware of. Here's CTV's Alison Bamford with what to expect.
Coming off a busy and expensive holiday season, many Canadians are looking for relief.
I have to put more effort into my budgeting and worry about, the necessities a bit more.
I've had a multitude of jobs where minimum wage just isn't enough.
The quickest relief is likely to come January 15th from the Canada Carbon Rebate, but only to people who live in provinces that follow Ottawa's carbon pricing system. The quarterly rebates are meant to offset the carbon tax, which goes up another $15 per ton on April 1st. For drivers, that means another 3 cents per liter of gas will be tacked on to the fuel charge at the pumps.
Instead of the carbon tax costing about $11 to fill up a minivan, it's going to cost about $14 to fill up a minivan. So that's an extra $3 every time you fill up your minivan. So that's going to be felt right away.
There are also the usual changes to tax brackets to prevent Canadians from paying higher taxes simply due to inflation. Others will see a little more shaved off their paycheck from rising CPP contributions.
There are some Canadians, definitely at the lower end of the income spectrum, who will see actually a slight decrease in payroll taxes, but the majority of Canadians are going to see higher payroll taxes.
In the end, experts say affordability challenges are likely to stick around this year.
As Canadians look to fill that first grocery bag of the year, they're going to find that it's not any easier than it was this time last year. And in many ways, it's going to be harder as well.
The temporary GST break could offer relief to some Canadians, but the tax holiday only lasts until mid-February. Morella?
All right, Allison, thanks for that. The government is also moving to protect Canadians from high interest rate loans this year, bring forward anti-scab legislation to protect union workers, and introduce new paid leave for pregnancy loss. If losing weight is high on your agenda this year, you may already be exploring prescription drugs that can help. You've likely heard about Ozempic and Wegovy, but there's a new drug that has doctors and patients talking. CTV's Pauline Chan reports.
Ian Patton underwent bariatric surgery 10 years ago before the rise of Ozempic and other drugs.
It was life-saving. It was necessary at the time.
He says he's not sure he'd be here today if it weren't for that surgery, but new medications are offering more options.
We've got a much better understanding of obesity as a chronic disease, how it works, and how we can effectively manage it. So having these new tools is very exciting.
He says eating well and exercising are a good plan for general good health, but
The evidence is very clear. Eating less and moving more is not an effective treatment for any chronic disease, including obesity. Psychological intervention, bariatric surgery, and the pharmacotherapy. So those are the three pillars of obesity treatment.
We continue to see a rise of people living with obesity here.
semaglutide drugs such as Ozempic and Wegovy have been very successful, but Dr. Sean Wharton was part of a research team that recently presented its findings on a new third generation of weight loss drug called tirzepatide.
We were surprised. We thought that it would be somewhat better than what we're seeing with the second generation weight management medications, more than the 15% range, but we didn't think it would get over 20%. So we saw 22% weight loss with this new molecule, and that was a really big deal because that's an average.
Furthermore, he says the loss is from key areas.
Most of the weight loss comes from the visceral adiposity. So that's a central area in the belly, and that's the toxic fat. That fat causes inflammation and goes throughout the entire body. It leads to type 2 diabetes. It can lead to heart failure and a number of medical problems.
Tirzepatide is approved in Canada for use in patients with diabetes, but Dr. Wharton says patients dealing with obesity and no diabetes must pay out of pocket about $500 a month. In May, Wegovy was approved in Canada for weight loss, and Dr. Wharton believes tirzepatide will too because of its overall health benefits.
So fatty liver, high blood pressure, heart disease. If it has an impact on those things, then I think that the insurance companies and possibly the government will look to cover it.
There are a few contraindications for people who should not take tirzepatide, such as those with a family history of medullary thyroid cancer or idiopathic pancreatitis. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Coming up, cracking a case that captivated Canada. How the great portrait heist came to a conclusion. Plus, what's inspiring Canadians to change in 2025? High-powered Hollywood agency WME says it was not pressured by Blake Lively and her husband Ryan Reynolds to cut ties with actor Justin Baldoni. Lively is in a legal battle with her It Ends With Us co-star.
I'll have an idea of what love can be.
I want to see you again.
Now you see me.
Lively is suing Baldoni for sexual harassment. She accuses the actor and his team of trying to destroy her reputation. Lively's lawsuit came hours after Baldoni filed a $250 million defamation lawsuit against the New York Times, alleging the newspaper worked with her to damage his reputation. 3 years after it was stolen, a portrait of Sir Winston Churchill was found in 2024. It was returned to the hotel in Ottawa where it had disappeared from. CTV's Judy Trin walks us through the case that captivated a nation.
It is not the Italian job, but it is a Canadian caper. The roaring lion portrait of Winston Churchill is returning home after hanging in Nicola Castellini's living room for nearly 2 years. He bought it for more than $9,000 from Sotheby's, which unknowingly auctioned off a stolen piece of history.
Now I am a part of a movie story. I think it's something priceless.
The heist happened around Christmas 2021 during COVID lockdowns. The original photograph of the glaring prime minister was swapped out with a copy bearing a forged signature encased in a cheaper frame. At that time, Ottawa police had little experience investigating art theft.
You look at the portrait every day and you're like, well, maybe we can give up. But he looks you in the face and you can't give up with that stern, look.
Investigators from Britain and Italy joined in the hunt.
We're delighted to be able to honor the collaboration that exists between Canadian and Italian law enforcement officials, which demonstrates their shared commitment to the fight against trafficking in cultural materials.
Initially, police believed it was an inside job, casting doubt on the employee who discovered the fake.
I'm not the one that took it, so the truth is the truth.
The theft struck at the heart of the chateau. The portrait was a gift from famed photographer Yusuf Karsh.
Come into our living room.
Karsh and his wife Estrelita lived at the hotel for 18 years. Losing the portrait scarred the chateau's identity. Its return will make it whole.
I would have never thought before that somebody would do something like this, but now that we know the security measures are reinforced, obviously, because the goal is really to put it back where it was.
We still don't know how the suspect pulled off this heist. That's a question that won't be answered in Italy, but it could be revealed in Ottawa, when 43-year-old Jeffrey Wood of Powassan, Ontario, faces charges of theft and forgery in court. Judy Trin, CTV News, Rome.
Still ahead, figuring out the finances for 2025. A money expert's advice on how to get ahead this year. For many Canadians, the joy of the new year may be tempered by financial worries and ongoing economic uncertainty. From the rising price of groceries to the cost of high interest rates, just about everyone's feeling the pinch. For a look at what Canadians can expect, CTV News chief anchor Omar Sachedina recently sat down with personal finance and money expert Melissa Leong.
Melissa, it's great to have you on. There's so much anxiety as we step into the new year, and a lot of it has to do with money. One of the major pressure points, of course, is at the grocery store, and we know that inflation is at 1.9%, around the Bank of Canada's target range. So the question is, in 2025, will lower inflation mean lower food prices? And what impact is this weak Canadian dollar having?
So for Canadians, a low loonie means higher prices for imported goods and services. And especially we have been seeing that you said it, at the grocery store when it comes to food prices. There's a new report that in 2025, Canadians will be expecting overall food prices to rise between 3 and 5%. So for an average family of four like mine, you will spend projected $17,000 on food next year. That's an increase of up to $800 from last year. And that's on everything from restaurants to food to meat and vegetables. For meats, that's the highest projected increase, to between 4 and 6%. I don't know about you, but I've been trying to practice what I preach. I have been meal planning. I've been shopping with friends, buying in bulk and splitting the costs. I know some people who are doing digital couponing and taking advantage of loyalty programs. And I do also know that there's this increased popularity with putting cash in envelopes. So the envelope system, where you're saying, this much money every 2 weeks is earmarked for specific expenses like groceries, like gas, and this is helping people keep on budget.
Yeah, trying to budget and save as much as we can. So no relief, it sounds like, at the checkout. But what about elsewhere?
So you said the Bank of Canada said that the target rate, we are in the target rate of around 2%. But that does not mean that prices are going down. So if I think about it this way, if we've all been climbing the proverbial mountain when it comes to prices, and we may be hitting a plateau, but that doesn't mean that we're going back downhill. Maybe boxes will shrink, so you have shrinkflation, but prices might stay the same. When it comes to relief in the beginning part of 2025, at least, we still have the GST holiday, so a tax break on certain items until February 15th. That being said, just because something is on sale doesn't mean that we should rush out to get it. We should really ask ourselves if we really need something before we buy. And the other projected relief will come for borrowers. So we've seen interest rate cuts already, and economists are predicting that we might see a few more, maybe 25 basis points in terms of cuts in 2025. And so the immediate relief will be for variable rate mortgage holders, people with home equity lines of credit, and anyone shopping for a new mortgage or renewing.
And Melissa, speaking of interest rates, I was going to ask you about that. In this era of falling rates, what money moves should Canadians be considering?
Falling interest rates will affect your financial plan. So I encourage everyone, 2025, revisit your financial plan, revisit your investment plans, make sure that you're properly diversified to meet your goals, make sure that nothing is off track. And if there is, then make the necessary changes, as well as maximize your tax advantage accounts like your TFSA, like your RRSP. This is where you want your investments growing tax-free or tax-deferred. And we talked about rate cuts. We talked about people who may be experiencing the maybe wonderful thing of more money in their wallets than expected. And so I would challenge anyone who has that experience to earmark that extra money, maybe with an automatic deduction, to financial goals like debt repayment and building an emergency fund.
And so is that your advice with these low rates, is to focus on those ideas? Because sometimes there can be a temptation to carry more debt.
We have hit an all-time high when it comes to household debt of $2.5 trillion. And so if you want to make paying down debt a goal in 2025, a New Year's Eve resolution, so to speak, I think that is an excellent move. I would just say three things. The first one is you can't fix what you can't see. And so make a note of all of your debts, list them by interest rate, the minimum payment, the balance, and then pick a payment plan that is going to be motivating to you. So while making the minimum payment on all your debts, don't miss any payments. Pick one. If you get a work bonus, if you make a sacrifice here, allocate extra money to that debt and try to knock it out of the park. And if you are struggling, make sure that you seek help. Call your lenders, ask for a lower interest rate, maybe seek help from a nonprofit credit counselor or a trusted advisor. You are not alone.
Melissa, some great tips for the new year. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too, Omar.
Straight ahead. The resolutions for 2025. Back in a moment. We end tonight with the promises made on a new beginning. That's right, resolutions. Many make them, not many keep them, but still we try our best to be better each and every year. CTV's Sarah Plowman with the pledges for 2025.
Hours after the fireworks fizzle. After pubs holler for this year's first last call.
Better get it.
Many shift their focus to the hand they've been dealt to ask what resolution can be made this year.
I plan on visiting family more this year. I plan on maintaining and possibly getting in better shape.
A fresh year could mean a fresh look, a reset of priorities.
Make more money. Make more money is a big one. I don't know, just become a better person altogether.
This year, I think I got to spend more time with family.
Some aim to work out more or lose weight. Others vow to read more books or budget better. A new UK study suggests a single cigarette can take about 20 minutes off a person's life, but not all smokers are ready to butt out.
No, because quitting smoking is about the person, not about quitting for other people. You have to do it for yourself.
Canadians will try to toss bad habits and recycle good ones.
Be good to people.
Consistency with work and staying on top of the bills and things, I guess.
How to start? Many say plunge in.
It's great for the body, great for the skin, makes you feel alive.
The trick to staying on track, experts say, is be okay to fail.
I think that when people encounter the slightest bit of failure, we have a tendency of personalizing it and we give up.
So learn to pick yourself up, she says.
A week later or a month later, there's so much benefit in that, right? That's the backbone of resilience.
A push to try whatever the goal. Cheers to that. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
That's a wrap on the day. Thanks for sharing your time with us. For all of us here at CTV National News, Happy New Year. I'll see you tomorrow.